to. We'll be publishing that soon, I'd imagine.
Yeah. Apologies for being late for this week. There will be a sign. Got a sticker on it. People's can. Says your new trash bags.
Good evening. Good evening. There we go. I'll call this meeting of the Pittsburgh Board of Commissioners for December 9th to order, and we will start with a moment of silence. Thank you. Commissioner Farrell, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Would everyone rise for the pledge? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, up next, we have the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or corrections to the consent agenda or the regular agenda?
Yes. Thank you for asking. I would like to add back the draft climate policy proposal. And I would recommend that we place it before the climate action plan. That's for action items.
Okay, so we will make that item 2 under action items, and then make the climate action plan scope number 3 and the budget amendment number 4.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, any other changes or additions? Take a motion to approve the amended agenda.
So moved. Second.
All right, Commissioner Vose, second. Commissioner Bonitz, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Take a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to move.
All right.
Sorry.
Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin?
You.
Second. Commissioner Vose, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Information items, we have a report from the Boys and Girls Club. Is there any questions on that? Okay. We don't have any ceremonial items this evening, so we will go into citizens matters and start with the manager's update.
Sir, thank you. Your budget survey will be live this week, hopefully tomorrow. Added a few questions on there to try to get people's priorities for the budget from the public standpoint. So you'll see that on the website, pittsburghnc.gov/engage. So that'll go live on Facebook and we'll send that out to everybody. We have an update from Fire Connections on the ladder truck. The old ladder has been removed, the new ladder has been made, and they're in process of installing the new ladder on the truck. So we'll keep you informed on how that project is going. January 7th, there will be a new day added to trash collection. So now it'll be 3 days. We believe the only folks impacted by that are the folks that live in the vineyards. But it was getting to the point where one route had like 800 people, one route had like 1,600. So they're trying to reorganize that with all the growth coming to make sure they have enough time to collect everybody's trash. So again, January 7th, a week or two before, they will be adding stickers to each of the trash cans to let you know when your new date is. But we are going to have information out hopefully this week to try to get ahead of that. If people have questions, tell them to just give town hall a call. And lastly, just wanted to publicly thank the staff and you all for participation with the Christmas parade. In my 14 years of doing this, that was the most fun I've had at the Christmas parade. So again, thanks to the staff. Appreciate the level of effort.
That's great to hear.
Yes.
Then we've got a presentation by Teresa Thompson, Assistant Planning Director. Talk about Rural Transportation Planning Organization.
Good evening, Teresa Thompson, Assistant Planning Director presenting. I'm going to give an overview of the transportation planning process through the Central Pines RPO. We did make you some notebooks. They're going to be distributed tomorrow, so I'll let you know what's in them, and you'll have a copy of these tomorrow. And it's for future reference, because a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is a bit to remember. So we're gonna start on the next slide, please. Okay, so Pittsboro is located in the Central Pines Rural Planning Organization. It's that large cream color on the map. The CPRPO, it includes several parts of different counties, including Chatham County, Lee County, Moore County, and Orange County. So looking at Chatham County, you can see there's that blue area. That's the Chapel Hill or Durham, Chapel Hill, Carrboro MPO. MPO stands for Metropolitan Planning Organization. And then the green is the capital area MPO. So I wanted to mention, we have an RPO and two MPOs in Chatham County. It's not that common. And wanted to give an idea of what's different about them. Especially since Pittsboro is more likely going to be an MPO probably in the next 8 years or so. So a metropolitan planning organization, it's more of an urbanized area of at least 50,000 people. And once you're determined to be within that urbanized area, you have to join the MPO. So a couple of years ago, the DCHC MPO requested Pittsboro to join, and Pittsboro was able to decline at that time. We're not considered to be within that area. And the reason we declined is because even though there's more funding, there's a lot more projects to compete with, and a lot of those projects are a lot more expensive. So outside of the MPOs are the RPOs, which is considered the more rural areas of the state, and that's what we're currently in right now. Any questions on the general difference between MPOs and RPOs? Okay. We'll talk about the MPO RPO structure. So all RPOs and MPOs consist of three main parts. You've got the lead planning agency, the Rural Technical Coordinating Committee, and the Rural Transportation Advisory Committee. So the lead planning agency, that's mainly the staff of the RPO. The director of the RPO is Carol Fuller. She works for the Transportation Division of the Central Pines Regional Council. So Carol is our go-between with DOT on planning projects and prioritization and the funding process. She helps us apply for grants such as CMAQ, CRP funds. And generally, she helps give direction to DOT from the RTCC and the RTAC. So the RTCC, we're a technical committee. I'm on it. It's mostly staff from different member organizations. So I represent Pittsboro on this committee, and we give recommendations and advise the RTAC. So you could think of the RTCC as more of like the planning board. RTAC is more of like the town board. And the RTAC is the advisory committee. So they make the final decisions on scoring for our region. Mayor Shipp is the representative for Pittsboro on this committee. Then The county gets one vote, and then all the towns in Chatham County get one vote. So currently, Mayor Shipp is the alternate member, and a commissioner from Siler City is the voting member. So this upcoming June, there can be a swap of who's voting and who's alternate. That's the way it's historically been done. So any questions about the lead planning agency, RTCC, and RTAC? Next slide, please. So now we're going to talk about what we do at our committee meetings. The strategic transportation investments prioritization, that's a really long name, so we just call it prioritization for short, or whatever project year we happen to be in. So you might hear it be called P6, P7, etc. It's basically the law that makes how we fund and prioritize projects in North Carolina. So that includes all transportation modes. You've got bike and ped, aviation, railway, and highway. It's the scoring process. I give you more information in your handbooks, but it's basically a combination of quantitative data versus qualitative local input points. So, you know, having representation on these committees are very important. Advocating for the projects in your jurisdiction makes a big difference. So it's a combination of the two of those in the scoring process. So when you get your handbooks, if you have any questions about it, just let me know. And we can go over in more detail. So again, the prioritization process includes the spot and the STIP. Going into that in a little more detail, the STIP, that's the final product. So that's what you see when you see the list of projects. It includes everything that has been planned for, funded for. It shows the construction and delivery phases of each project on that list. Some projects are on the STIP for delivery, some are only on there for planning, and then maybe the next STIP will be on there for delivery. So typically, if you want to see a project funded, it needs to go through the STIP process. So again, like going through, this is how we plan for transportation in Pittsburgh for the most part. Moving on to the,
Teresa, one question, refresh my memory on the Pittsburgh Elementary project.
that was a sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
So the spot process is how we get projects on the STIP. So each RPO and MPO, you're given a total number of points, and you go through the committees to designate how many points go to each project. So we assign points through the committees, DOT assigns points through that quantitative data, and the end product is the whole list of projects. The one that scored the most or the highest is at the very top of the list, down to the one that scored the lowest. And those are the ones that are more likely to happen. So we're currently looking at P7, which is the upcoming STIP. So we're currently in a spot process for P7, and that'll be STIP 2026 to 2035. So the DOT gave you an update of what our current STIP is. That's 2024 to 2033. And that was that last list that you saw that had like the traffic circle, 15501 widening, Chatham Parkway. This STIP, the upcoming STIP, has some new projects on there. We initially had the 5 intersection pedestrian projects, sidewalk on MLK Jr., and the widening of NC 87. We went through the scoring process. The good news is the 5 intersection project is ranked number one on the whole list for the whole region. And the bad news is there's absolutely no funding for this STIP. DOT Division 8 is actually $12 million in debt. So it probably is not going to happen. DOT still wanted us to go through the P7 process just in case there's a chance funding becomes available, but it most likely won't happen. We do want to start planning for the next STIP, 2028 to 2037. And we're going to start planning for that this summer. So it's important for us to start thinking about that now and what we would like to see on the next step. Next slide, please. So lastly, I wanted to go over the importance of comprehensive plans in Pittsboro. So everything that we just talked about comes after what is in our comprehensive plans. So our comprehensive plans include the future land use plan, the bike and ped plan, and this is the town-wide bike and ped plan, Parks and Recs master plan, and the comprehensive transportation plan. So when you're looking at STIP projects, transportation projects, it usually is the CTP and bike and ped plan. So it's very important that we keep these plans updated. The bike and ped plan was last updated in 2020, so that's fairly new. The CTP, you can see the date on that map is 2011. So I think that's 13 years old. Plans are supposed to be updated every 3 to 5 years. And we have been asking DOT for an update for several years now. They haven't had the staffing available to do so, but they have said that within the next 6 months, they should have the staffing available to get started on that. Realistically, it's going to be a 2-year project. So looking at our current CTP, all of the projects, all of the Pittsboro projects in our current STIP and our upcoming STIP came from the CTP and the bike and ped plan. And the reason DOT likes to include that is because it's already been through the vetting process. It's received community input. So 9 times out of 10, whatever ends up on the STIP usually starts on one of our comprehensive plans. If you'd like to be involved in the upcoming STIP process and thinking of project ideas, let me know, because we need to start thinking about that in time for next summer. And if you'd like to be a part of the CTP update, that's going to start in the next 6 months or so, please let me know as well. And we'd love to have your input in the planning process. So please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Teresa, the CTP update is going to be countywide.
Correct.
I'm correct?
Correct.
So just Pittsburgh.
That's correct. So that'll be more comprehensive to include what the county projects are concurrent with Pittsboro's projects versus the last time it was separated.
Thank you, Teresa. I do have some comments and some questions. The first thing that, because we have the benefit of a significant chunk of the public here with us tonight, I want to make sure that they're following along with this. That I think we can be grateful in North Carolina that we have the STIP process, because previously it was a rather haphazard and politically fraught process of who got the roads and who didn't. The process now is really slow and plodding, but that means that we've got to plan really far ahead. And for a community like ours that's growing so fast, we've got to be nimble. And I want to give credit to Mayor Pro Tempore Baldwin for her advocacy, as you've told me, going back to 2009 for the sidewalks on Hillsborough Street that are going to be in construction year after next, I think. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
That's the widening of Hillsborough Street from Chatham Mill up to Powell Place. And
what's the most recent date on that?
2026.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And there'll be a multi-use path on one side and a sidewalk on the other. And boy, has that process been really long. And thank you for your dedication to it. Thinking through that and the anticipation of when that's going to get done, it all of a sudden hit me like a ton of bricks that we don't have a way to get from Powell Place to the high school, or from Lowe's Hardware to the Mosaic development or the Penguin Place. You have to be in a car. And so there's plenty of space on that bridge, on that overpass, for bike and pedestrian. But it was the first that it finally hit me. I communicated to Jonathan Franklin just last night or night before. that's something we need to be thinking about in our capital planning process, which is separate. That was our budget conversation. But how can we begin advocating for that with DOT?
So I thought that that was actually included in the R 5724B project. I looked at the most recent plans. It does show a sidewalk connection on the west side, on the Powell Place side, going north. So I'm gonna contact NCDOT and get an update on that. But we can always look at that as a future STIP project as well.
That's exciting, because when I look at the map, I don't see it, but the drawings that I'm looking at may be too old. Well, that's terrific. And similarly, I think there's some work to be done on East Street. You know, the big idea here is that as we grow, we should try to remain connected. And that connectivity is, I know I'm preaching to the choir. It's not just vehicular connectivity. It's not just getting to and fro with vehicles. It's also about bicycles and pedestrians. And when the Chatham Park investors build the project that's known as the Comet Affordable Housing over there near Chatham Park Way and not too far from Christian Village, that's going to be a significant number, several hundred people living there, people of modest income, and they may really appreciate being able to walk to the food line, for example, or ride their bike. So, yeah, let's look into whether or not that has to go on STIP number 8, or whether or not we can do something in the meantime. So thank you for hearing me on that.
Yeah, we can always look at it as a STIP project. The town also has access to CMAQ and CRP funds. So we can look at that for the next round as well.
I think East Street is a good application for CMAQ, or what was the other one?
CRP,
CRP.
carbon reduction plan.
Only about 1,000 feet. So, and we could probably do an in-house estimate just to see where that would shake out dollar-wise.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll give my update next. So we had a ribbon cutting at the new Hampton Inn. So really excited to have that size and scale of hotel available now in Pittsburgh. And then immediately after that, I went to the National League of Cities Conference, and it was in Tampa, Florida this year. But good opportunity for lots of training and networking and some tours of some large developments that have happened there and stuff. So that was a good opportunity. Just want to say again to staff and everyone to help put it on. The tree lighting was a fantastic event. So Pittsburgh Business Association and amazing turnout for that. And I think it's really what shows off Pittsburgh in a really great way, doing that. And same thing with the parade yesterday. Just lots of fun, lots of floats, and really great event. Appreciate Teresa giving my update on the RPO. So extensive update on the RPO. Meeting in December is canceled actually. So we'll pick that up again in January. And EDC is having Economic Development Corporation is having a holiday party this month, but no actual meeting. So we'll pick that up again in January also. Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin.
No, thank you. I don't have anything to report at this time, other than to say I thank the staff. It was a wonderful parade. You all did an excellent job, and I certainly do appreciate it. Along with the police department, I do appreciate it. Thank you.
It's Shorty's favorite event.
It really was terrific. And all the staff and a lot of volunteers I know as well. I think Katie is not with us, but
She's in training.
I understood she did the bulk of the work with interacting with a lot of the actual floats and such.
And Mara.
Okay. Huge thanks to her in her absence. But I also was privileged to attend the Siler City Christmas Parade. And I was among many notable things, I was really impressed that there was a fleet of 6 electric vehicles, privately owned, all waving the Wolfspeed flag. And so I thought maybe we should invite Wolfspeed employees to come to our parade next year. And we'll have a whole flotilla of electric vehicles perhaps, but also want to give great thanks to staff and volunteers of the PBA, a lot of volunteers from the PBA for the Christmas tree event, the tree lighting. That was a really special opportunity this year. So thank you. That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Farrell?
I'm nothing at this time. I'll just echo the same sentiments regarding the parade. And Chief Johnson, all your work, and the public and all, I think you had a very large turnout.
Yeah.
Very large turnout.
Thank you. Commissioner Foley?
Just on the parade, once again, just such a positive, so much energy. And that builds community. And that's something that when the town employers are out handing out candy, it says a lot. You know? So my hat's off to everyone. Hard work for the whole staff. I was at the last Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for the county for the year, and we awarded some monies to Rebuilding Together, which is a wonderful nonprofit organization, regional organization. And what they do is they preserve naturally occurring affordable housing. So if there's a resident in the county that has a roof that's leaking, they step in. If they need an HVAC or a wheelchair ramp, they step in. And so what it does is saves natural occurring affordable housing, so that our job as a municipality is that much easier, mitigating such a difficult task as to housing everybody in affordable manner. So that's my only update. Sorry for preaching there.
Thank you. Commissioner Vose?
On November 14th, I was also at the ribbon cutting for the Hampton Inn Suites and was really impressed by everything that they've done out there. I kind of feel like they could have done a Holiday Inn Express and we would have been happy, and they stepped way up. So it's nice to see. On the 21st, I attended a downtown stakeholders meeting. On the 24th, I was blown away by the tree lighting. That was amazing. Thank you to everybody. Last Tuesday, I made it to a downtown advisory board meeting, and thank you again to everyone that helped with the parade last Sunday.
Thank you. Up next, we have public comment. So please state your name and address at the start of your comments. There's a time limit of 3 minutes, which will be displayed on the screen. In the interest of time and fairness, it's the board's policy not to respond directly to comments during this period. Staff will follow up as appropriate. We have one person signed up this evening, Greg Lewis. So please come up.
Name is Gregory Lewis. I live at 78 Lauren Rose Lane in Pittsburgh. I just wanted to come up here and talk about the tree lighting. 10 years ago, an idea was hatched, and there were a few hundred people standing on the courthouse circle with high school bands, choirs, and even a group of seniors from Twin Rivers came. And we did the tree lighting on the circle, and as Pitch Please started to sing Silent Night, tractor trailer came around the back of the circle. So the circle was open. You know, we didn't stop traffic back then. And then it's grown into what it has become. Last year, this year, the number of people that attend this, the amount of support that we get from the town this year was felt more than any other year. I can tell you, you know, we've come a long way. So to the commissioners, you approve the finances to be spent for this. You approved the staff to help with this. Thank you. Commissioner Vose, for your financial support from your company. Thank you for being one of our sponsors. Mayor Shipp, you were a commissioner previously, you're the mayor now. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your support. Foley, Teresa, thank you for attending the meetings. Thank you for being the liaisons to the town, helping us get the equipment that we needed, the support that we needed, the staff, the equipment, everything that was needed for this. Shorty, thank you. And thank you to Percy for being there to help you. I don't think either one of you have missed a tree lighting in 10 years of doing this. And Percy wanted to make sure he was there this year. I thought that was great. And may I never have to stand at a barricade again to allow cars to either enter or not enter without a badge or a gun, mind you. It was difficult, knocking on car windows and saying, stop. So we appreciate you. Thank you. Officer Bradford, attending meetings, being the liaison and getting everything organized and set up. Thank you. Make sure you thank him. I have, but Tim and Kevin, the town staff, the town works people that were there. I want to say this was the first year that we had town works people on site the night of the tree lighting. It was amazing. I started moving the stage, the portable stage after the choirs were done. And boom, 4 or 5 guys roll up in a truck with a trailer and start loading it on. I mean, just amazing. We're used to loading that at the end of the event, taking it into a church basement for the night. And so all of these things, thank you. I don't know where my time is. I don't see it. Jonathan, I think it all starts with you. It does. I mean, it starts here, it comes through here, but you set the tone. And we thank you. We thank you for your support. We thank you for what you've done in the town. We thank you for supporting this. So from the financial support to the porta johns, we thank you for everything from the Pittsburgh Business Association, from me and Maria personally, from all the volunteers that were there that day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, up next, we're going to have a presentation of the downtown parking study by Teresa.
Lisa Thompson again. I'd like to introduce Jason Epley and Bridget Kalea. They're consultants with Benchmark, and they'll be presenting the downtown parking study. The study is an approved project in the downtown work plan. It's also an approved policy recommendation in the town's future land use plan. The consultants utilized town staff, and they received a lot of public input in the process. And Jason and Bridget will go through their findings and their proposed recommendations.
Evening. As Teresa mentioned, my name is Bridget Kalea and I work for Benchmark Planning. We were hired by the town back in the summer to complete the downtown parking study. And we predominantly worked over the course of the summer and the fall. You go to the next slide. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a highlight of what we found and also the recommendations we made. So we looked at a lot of different forms of background information to develop the study. As Teresa mentioned, we did some public outreach. We held what we call listening sessions, talked to over 50 people from a broad range of backgrounds, downtown business owners, property owners, residents, staff, people who represented nonprofit organizations. And we heard a lot of different things about parking downtown, some of the main issues that people have, some of the things that are going well, things that people would like to see. We use that as kind of our main qualitative form of information. And then in terms of quantitative information, we use Placer AI data, which gives you a kind of perspective of who's coming to downtown, how long they're staying, where they're coming from, when they're coming. We also looked at some of the previous plans the town has worked on, the previous downtown master plan, previous comprehensive plan. And then we use a lot of existing land use data. So we work with staff to find out what's going on downtown today, how traffic is generated for those uses. And then we also looked at the existing parking, including both public and private spaces. We got kind of a count of where parking is downtown and the different types of parking that exists today. And then how people can walk from parking to uses and the different parking demands that exist in downtown. So we took all this information and kind of drew some conclusions about what's going on with parking in downtown Pittsburgh and then made some recommendations. So I'll go over just kind of a high level, if you go to the next slide, what we found. So today you have over 1,300 parking spaces in downtown Pittsburgh. And when I say downtown, I'm speaking between Rectory Street and Masonic Street on the east-west boundaries, and then between Hanks and Thompson on the north, and then down to the courthouse in the south. So these parking spaces, over 600 of them are public parking spaces. So that includes on-street parking that is paved and striped. That includes the municipal lot and all of the county lots. But you also have over 600 private spaces, and this is a combination of private paved lots that are open to the public, gravel lots that are not paved or marked, but open to public and or people using uses downtown. And then there's also some more informal parking. In terms of visitor data, based on the Placer.ai data, you have about 1,500 to 3,000 visitors per day. This varies day of the week, time of the year. But on average, your busiest times are lunchtime and dinner time. So around lunch, you have between 400 and 500 people downtown. And at dinner, you have between 500 and 650 people. Most of the people who visit downtown stay for around an hour and a half, and then they go somewhere else. So just from a pure number standpoint, even if every one of those visitors that came for dinner was driving by themselves, spaces. However, we did hear from people that there is a perception that there's not enough parking downtown. And we believe this is primarily because of the location of parking. It might not be exactly where people want to park. You don't have enough what we're calling prime parking spaces. Everyone wants to park on Hillsborough Street. They want to park right in front of where they're going. And there might not be enough of those for people to do that. But your downtown isn't that large. You can walk to most of the downtown area within 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and you can pretty much reach all of the edges of downtown. So there are some ways that we could recommend improving the efficiency of existing parking, and that might help eliminate some of the concerns that people have. So that's kind of the basis of what we found. And then I'll tell you the kind of recommendations we made to resolve some of those issues. So we had 4 kind of broad categories of recommendations. The first one being improving the efficiency of existing parking. The second one being improving parking signage and awareness. The third one, identifying new parking opportunities. And then lastly, expanding multimodal connectivity. So for improving parking efficiency, there's actually a number of things the town has already been doing to try and fix some of these problems. So one of the first recommendations we had was to continue working with private property owners to develop public-private partnerships and improve existing downtown parking areas. The graphic you see here is based on those lots behind Hillsborough Street. But the town has been trying to get some of those unpaved gravel lots and kind of have an agreement to have them paved and striped, which would also increase the number of parking spaces back there. That's kind of an ongoing recommendation. The other recommendations we had here were about enforcing hourly parking or metered parking on Hillsborough Street. I know this is kind of a contentious one, but one of the main issues that was brought up during this study was that there are people who park on Hillsborough Street all day long and they don't move. And because you have so many people who come downtown and they want to go to the same destination for a short period of time, one of the main ways you can increase parking turnover is by forcing people to turn over the parking space. So if you could implement some way of forcing people to park only an hour, maybe 3 hours, and get out of that parking space, it'll open it up for someone else, increasing the amount of people who can use the same parking. Some of these are more long-term because they are kind of costly to enforce, particularly metered parking. And then we also had a recommendation about developing employee-only parking areas because some of the people who might be parking for long periods of time are people who work in downtown businesses. And if they had a safe, convenient place that was designated for employees, it's a great way to alleviate some of the on-street issues. And then the last two recommendations around improving efficiency of parking are being spaces that could be used for parking downtown but not currently. So we had a recommendation about improving code enforcement efforts to remove junk vehicles, other debris that might be on downtown lots where people could park, but they can't because they're stuck there now. And then we also had a recommendation about continuing to encourage parking lot enhancements as part of the facade improvement grant program. Again, this is something the town is already doing, both of these recommendations, but just kind of putting it in there as these are great things you all are doing, just keep doing it. And then our second set of recommendations was around improving parking signage and awareness. Again, this is something the town has kind of already been doing, working on. So our first recommendation was to create a clear coordinated off-street signage system. I think today there are some parking signs in some areas that aren't as well marked. And there is not consistency between the different signs that say you can park here. And so just improving the ability for people who are visiting downtown to know this is definitely somewhere I can park. It's open to the public and it's safe to park here. And then the second strategy under this recommendation is to develop and maintain online parking resources. So a lot of communities have these kind of interactive maps. You can go on and see, oh, here's this parking lot, here's on-street parking, and they can kind of plan before they head downtown where they can park. So our third set of recommendations is about identifying new parking opportunities. As I mentioned, we do not believe you have a parking problem today, so this is more of a long-term strategy. There's a potential for a lot of change in your downtown, and as new development comes, that will of course increase parking demand. And particularly with the potential for all of the county-owned properties to be redeveloped in the future, that would potentially have a very large impact on downtown usage. And since the county currently provides over 200 public parking spaces, the redevelopment of their property would be pretty substantial. So as things change, it'll be important to consider how it will impact parking demand and parking supply. And so we had a recommendation about evaluating the potential for developing a parking structure in the future. If you go to the next slide, we have an example. So this is from Concord, and when we did their downtown master plan, they had a county-owned parking lot, and you can see the picture in the top left is 2016. It's serving predominantly the county courthouse, and they wanted to redevelop it and put a parking deck there. And it's pretty expensive to develop a parking deck, $50,000 per space. And so we had suggested, why don't you build a parking deck, but also leave some space for private development to help offset it. And so on the left, you'll see they kind of left this little area and left it for an apartment complex to be built. And so they ended up doing a public-private partnership with the city and county and the private developer to help pay for the garage. And then they had some apartments that went in front of it.
What was that cost per space? One more time.
Between 30 and 50,000.
30 and 50.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
It's very expensive. Then our next recommendation for new parking opportunities, again, this is more as things arise, as parking demand might not be needed in certain parts of downtown, there's an opportunity to expand on-street parking. So if there's areas where parking is not being utilized, or if there's something that provides more parking in the future and there's an opportunity to expand on-street dining, this is something that was brought up by the public as that would be nice to see. Slide. And then our last recommendation about new parking opportunities is to expand on-street parking spaces as feasible. So we did identify some streets where there might be additional right-of-way or pavement that might allow on-street parking to be built on one or both sides of the street in the future as needed. And then our last set of recommendations was kind of related to parking. It was about expanding multimodal connectivity. Because I think, as you all know, if you convince more people to walk and bike downtown, then you don't need as many people to park downtown, and that's kind of a win-win for everyone. So we had some recommendations about improving the sidewalk and crosswalk conditions within the core of downtown, but also connecting to surrounding neighborhoods, improving walkability. And then we also had a recommendation about improving bike facilities and parking downtown. It's more of a medium-term recommendation. And then our last two slides for our last recommendations were about continuing to explore shuttle options for events and busy evenings and weekends. This is something the town has already got money to do. And as you have more and more events happening downtown, it's really helpful to kind of bring in a larger number of people with a limited parking for such a large event. And then lastly, just work with your partners to increase marketing of the walkability of downtown. And so that is the whole set of recommendations. This is something as the town continues to work on their downtown master plan that they can kind of roll into that and use the recommendations to put into the downtown master plan and other larger plans. And if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to take those.
Any questions?
Wow, what a wonderful job you have. Do you have any experience with the way we park on Hillsborough Street? Do you have any recommendations? Do you like the way everything's we park angled? Can you give us pros and cons?
Yeah, so I don't have a recommendation about it. I think it depends on what you would like to see on Hillsborough Street. I think there's pros and cons to the angled parking space. You get more parking with angled parking spaces. I know in the listening sessions, there were some concerns about backing up into traffic in those spots. And also if you had parallel parking, there's more room for wider sidewalks. But you, as I mentioned, you lose the spot, so.
Okay.
Pros and cons.
Very politically subtle. Thank you. And one more question about the pros and cons to metered parking downtown.
So the number one pro is that you enforce parking turnover, so you get more efficiency of the space. You can increase the number of people who can park in those prime spots. If you meter it, you also get to get money from people who are paying to park there. And it also encourages people to park further away for the free spaces. So then you increase the utilization of the spots that are further away that people don't want to walk to. Con, it's very expensive and difficult to enforce.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
One question regarding the parking places in front of Mr. Bradshaw's office. We do have a plan to make those angle parking, correct? Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you. Okay, we don't have any public hearings this evening. Our first action item is an appointment for the Board of Adjustment.
Good evening. As you see in your packet, we had one ETJ application. We actually had three, but two did not qualify because they were far outside of our ETJ. So staff is recommending the appointment of this young lady.
Okay. Are there any questions, discussion? Take a motion to approve Rachel Lindsay for a 3-year term on the Board of Adjustment beginning January 1, 2025 and ending December 31, 2027.
So move.
Commissioner Farrell,
Second.
second Commissioner Bonitz. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Training in February.
Okay, up next is the item of the consideration of the climate policies. Commissioner Bonitz.
Yes, thank you. So, unfortunately, my fellow commissioners and the mayor did not receive this very far in advance, and I only recognized this problem late last night. And so I just wanted to move this for conversation. I want to just take a deep breath and say, I'm not going to push this for a vote tonight. I do want to call your attention, everyone's attention now to the memo, which documents efforts going back to May of 2017. Continuing December of 2017, October of 2018, March of 2019, April of 2019. The budget in 2019-2020 included $20,000 for the mayor's sustainability initiative. Further in 2021, we have reaffirmed support for federal climate policy. So we have been passing resolutions and taking policy action and taking budget action on climate for a long time. And yet we don't have an overarching climate policy. So I think it's time. I think it's past time. And the climate policy that we now all have, I think we all have on paper. Is that right? And it is in your email inboxes as well, is a draft. And it's a draft that's open for your input. It's there for your consideration. It's there for you to suggest how we might improve. The whole goal here is that this is a proposal to help Pittsburgh take action against climate change while saving money and energy. It calls for making a plan to reduce pollution using smarter ways to build neighborhoods and using clean energy and cleaner transportation. And it also calls for the town to involve the community and to make sure that these changes are affordable to everyone. So we already have on our agenda, and this was on our agenda 2 months ago, a climate action plan proposal from the Central Pines Regional Council governments. And Emily Barrett, I'm so pleased that you're here to speak on that again tonight, if necessary. And the cost of that proposal has been really worked hard by staff and the COG. And I have confidence that that's a terrific plan, and we can address that when the time comes in just a moment. But that's another thing that this resolution does call for. It calls for making a plan. Plain and simple, we need to have a plan. But we should be clear that there's a difference between the plan and the policy. The policy is where this board says what we think ought to be, what should be. Where should we be going? How should we be directing staff? And it should be up to staff to go and do that plan, create the plan, write the plan, or commission it to be written. The policy should drive the plan. The plan should not be driving the policy. When the last administration passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, one of the large, I think the largest infrastructure investment plan in US history, it did not presume to change our policy. It did not presume to change the national constitution. The US Constitution is the policy. That's what tells us as citizens and tells the government how we ought to be, what we should strive to be. That's what I'm aiming for with the policy, is to give staff that guidance, that high level. Here's the lines on the playing field. Here's the goals. You come up with the quantitative goals, but we want to improve the environment while saving money and reducing pollution. So, the issue is really important. And I've been floating drafts now for 3 years. And it's important for people who live and breathe in town. It's important for our children or our grandchildren and many generations to come. And it's important for the financial stability of our town long-term, because if we allow ourselves to continue to grow in a sprawling fashion, there's empirical evidence, there's abundant data that shows towns that do that then can't afford to replace that infrastructure. They can't afford to repair those roads. So we have to change the way that we're building. We have to build up. We have to build more densely if we feel responsible for the financial future of our town. Sprawl will wreck future budgets. And because diesel and gasoline are now more expensive than cleaner forms of energy, that's another way that we can save energy, save money. So I'm going to get off my soapbox and just say that I think what's most important is that we all feel comfortable voting for this. And I think that because we did not get this document in sufficient time for everyone to review it, I think that we have the votes to pass this tonight, but I want us all to be on the same board and unanimous if possible. And if not possible, then let's try to strive for consensus. And so for that reason, I'm open to any text modifications from fellow commissioners, mayor, staff. Let's mark this thing up and let's get it passed. So any comments, any thoughts?
I have a few thoughts. You know, we talk about health and safety as commissioners. And my big concern is, my gosh, look at Oakwood Drive. It's away. We get another 50-year event and we're gonna be in the same position. We have Belmont Place going at the top of the hill, that hill, with many trees coming down. And the same thing down upstream on Robeson Creek, where the Reeves family farm is developing. And those are concerning issues. And it's my belief that we as commissioners should be protecting our citizens. And some of that is through environmental policy. It's hard for the town staff to be placed in a position where environmental policy is not explicitly explained to them, where it's clear that density is a priority and that trees are a priority. And so I look at this document and thank you, Commissioner Bonitz, for bringing it up. We have one shot at this, and it would be a shame that we wouldn't pick this apart. And I recommend that we do not necessarily do it in front in the town board meeting, but in a comfortable setting where we have the planning department, the engineering department, the staff, and a position where they can say, well, this is going to work, this is not going to work. How do we tweeze this to the point where it's actually something positive and we can be proud of? So thank you for bringing it up. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Commissioner Foley. And I completely agree. One of my frequently cited pet peeves is editing on the fly, making text changes to policies before we vote on them. So I appreciate that. Yeah. And further, I'll amplify what you said. I mean, the scouring and erosion and flooding that we saw in Western North Carolina was horrific. And the scientists are telling us we're going to see more of it. And we lost our culvert on Pittsburgh Elementary Road in August of 2018. And we're still repairing it and patching it and still awaiting that major capital project to replace it in a way that will make it endure 100-year plus floods. So
You see the same thing at Oakwood Drive as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you for raising that issue. Any other thoughts?
I'm in agreement, but I don't have any additional words to add.
Definitely in agreement with what Commissioner Foley said, and thank you for presenting that to us. But it would be better for us to get together with the planning department, our manager, assistant manager, so that we can actually discuss and review this to make sure that these things can be implemented. Or if they cannot, what other actions we can take. So yes, we definitely do need a climate policy, but we need to definitely be able to discuss it with the town staff and review it in great detail.
And thank you, Commissioner Bonitz, for putting this history together too of the background, the extensive efforts I think that have been done already and how we can use that to continue our efforts here, so. Okay. Any other comments? All right, thank you.
So barring none, I will table this matter again for the January meeting, if staff think that that meeting has capacity, isn't too overloaded.
I mean, I think with Christmas being right between that, there goes a week.
Like,
Probably how we would all get together to discuss this in a 3-week time period.
Okay.
With travel
Is
plans.
the plan for us all to get together? Do you want to call for a workshop?
It would be necessary to have a workshop in order for us to actually have a discussion for sure. But now I don't know if we can do it from between this time and the meeting in January. That might be a bit much.
Yes.
I think we would have the opportunity to do that within that short span.
Okay. Work,
Just one comment. If we have this work session with staff and, would we still have the Central Pines Regional Action Plan also, or where would we go from there? Will we go for the staff, first and then go to the Central Pines? Or do we, one or the other?
I think you could do both.
Okay. Which one first? Didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I'm Jenna Peterson. I'm prepared to present the climate action proposal. So in the proposal, one of the items that we've included is kind of a workshop session with the board to get more direction. If you were going to do a workshop independently for the policy, I would recommend holding off on the proposal for the plan, just so that way we can get a better. I don't think both at the same time is best.
Keep going.
The plan costs money if we're gonna workshop internally. Why are we also spending money to workshop externally?
Because you have professionals that you're paying for to help you facilitate.
That's right.
That's why.
Right.
Mhm.
So we should have our plan before we have our policy, correct? That's the way I look at it. Maybe not.
There's differing opinions on that. The way that we revised the plan was to, we took a lot of the action items out to reduce the cost. And so based off of the plan, we would come up with recommendations that would be like action items. So we could do the plan first and then the policy, or we could shift gears and do the policy first and hold off on the plan.
How about,
Anything you'd like to add?
I would suggest that we do the presentation on the plan for this evening, and then we can take action on what we want to do after that presentation. On any of these items after we have the presentation on the update to the climate action plan proposal.
Okay.
So let's move to that item and then we'll take action on both.
All right, so let's recap. We talked about the proposal in the October meeting. There was concern with the cost of the plan and what the outcome of the plan was going to be. There was also concern for wanting both a plan and a policy. So to help address the comments from the October meeting, we revised the proposal for the plan and that included removing the assessment and some of the other analysis that were going to be heavier cost associated items. And then we also brought a lot more internally. So the way that I see the plan is that it would allow staff to develop community buy-in into the climate action plan, and it would allow staff time to review all of the plans that the town has and identify what existing policies we have in place and where any gaps are. So that way, as we start making recommendations for action items and or policy for town staff to follow and work on implementing, we know what those gaps are. So I guess one question I have for clarification on policy is, are we looking at policy for town staff to be implementing? Okay. So then I think the plan could go first. Sorry, so I digress, circling back to our update. So the revised update is quoted at $12,000. And one of the other things that we discussed with Central Pines.
It says 20,000 in the.
Oh, did I read wrong incorrectly? I apologize. Sorry. Thank you.
No problem.
$20,000. So then we discussed grant options. And one of the grants that Central Pines mentioned is the Partners for Green Growth grant. So that is a grant that Chatham County recently was awarded for their sustainability plan. It requires a 25% match, and project ideas are typically due in April or May, and then the funding decisions are decided in May or June. So it would delay the plan to next fiscal year. And that is what I have for you. If Emily would like to add anything.
The only thing I'd add based on the conversation thus far is working on the plan does have a citizen engagement component. And you all may like to hear more from your citizens about this topic before deciding on the policy. So that's really up to you and your discretion. That is just one thing that occurred to me as we were as you all were discussing this. So, and I'm here if you need me.
And with that grant, does it will it pay for something for work we've already done? If we were to find out about it in the middle of this, or?
I do not know that. I don't know if you know that.
Typically, that's not what we recommend for grants because there's an element of risk. But I will say that particular grant has a heavy emphasis on habitat and tree canopy. And I think for Chatham County, that was a key component to them winning that grant that enabled them to tie climate planning to those two topics. Obviously, we've already heard tonight, trees are a big issue for the community. So it shouldn't be too difficult to make that tie-in, but I did want to mention that that's a key driver for that particular grant.
That is the end of what I have for you.
Okay. So, regarding this question of division of opinion about whether or not the plan should precede the policy or the policy should precede the plan, I will ask, what is it about this current draft that commissioners have concerns about? Because, I mean, what I studied in public policy school is that the policies should drive plans. And so it's kind of making my brain go in loops to hear otherwise. And I don't want to necessarily have you drill through the document right here and now, but I'm very eager, friends, to receive red ink, markups, pen on paper, or track changes in a Word document. I want to hear your concerns.
So we spoke earlier today in all candor, and you kind of gave me a civics analogy about the policy coming before the plan. But speaking for myself, as a person who's not an environmentalist, who cares greatly about the environment, but doesn't know what he doesn't know, I think there's value in workshopping it before we put that document out there. I think instead of being this sort of blanket coverall, which you've done a great job of doing, I think it could be more tailored to our community. I guess that's what I've been saying.
And I think it's not necessarily either or, as I especially relook at the first phase of this proposal is internal work actually on securing political commitment, pass a resolution or policy committing to the plan and have a vision statement about it, form and launch a climate action task force about this for community input, and then community engagement strategy. So I think all of those things are essentially what we're discussing here in terms of that policy, and then it gets into climate action planning. So I think we're largely talking about the same thing. It's just this is included in the first part of this project proposal, the type of workshop that you were describing and some of the other community engagement things like others were describing. So I don't think we're necessarily talking about different things here. I think it's what you've started on and what we're describing is the beginning of this climate action plan proposal. And then it would go into defining project scope and goals and some of those details. But I think it's described here what we're talking about. Without getting into the specifics, like you said, in the plan.
Okay.
Or in the policy.
All right. I appreciate this. It feels like the most substantive conversation we've had about it. And the two things that I would share kind of as cautionary advice for us as a governing board is two things. What I was really hoping to avoid is a list of wants. We want more EVs. We want more charging. We want more solar panels on the roof. We want this or that or the other. That really needs to come through staff. That needs to come through a deliberative process, the professionals that we hire to figure those things out in response to daily operations and so on and so forth. The second thing is that a lot of advice is given to municipalities to set quantitative goals, measurable goals, and then work towards them. And what I've understood from now almost 9 years working with the county's Climate Change Advisory Committee is that that's an exceedingly difficult thing at this scale. The data surrounding emissions, electricity sources, fuel sources, transportation emissions, the data just are not reliable. They're not easily accessible. They're expensive. So if at any point we're tempted to try and pin down some kind of baseline process, measurement or metrics, I'm going to continue to urge us to try and pull back from that temptation, because the special thing about Pittsburgh right now, we're essentially tiny. We're essentially, our emissions are almost not worth the cost of measuring. But what we do know is that we're going to grow from 5,000 people to 75,000 people. And you better believe our emissions will be significant at that point and measurable at that point. But to get from here to there, we just have to set some high overarching policy statements, and I believe unleash our staff and empower them to pursue this. And I think that everybody on this board also agrees. I guess will be the third caveat I want to offer. I think we all also want to be very mindful of the purse strings and very attentive to economic feasibility and cost effectiveness. And that language is laced through this document, multiple mentions per page, emphasizing how important economics are to this whole endeavor. So, yeah, I hope we can all stay on the same page that we're not talking about frivolous things here. We're talking about serious things that will seriously save us money and seriously save us pollution. So I've said enough. Thank you, friends.
Any other comments? Discussion?
Yes, there was some mention about public input. If we're going to do that, we should do that prior to our meetings, correct? Is that, maybe we need to do that first, as soon as possible.
The proposal describes the political commitment first, and then an action team and a community engagement survey.
Okay.
Before we get into the climate action plan itself, but in some order, those three things.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be better for us to have the response from the Central Pines so that they present our plan. And then we also look at this policy. I would hate to go forward. I don't want anything to be frivolous, that's for sure. So I definitely just don't want just data and just say, okay, this is the data. I do, as I said in the last time, when we do a plan or when we do a study, I want the study to have what needs to be done and how you can take that action. That's always what I think a study should do. And oftentimes it doesn't. So with this, I think what Central Pines will propose to us would be a study as well as an action. And then as commissioners, we can look at that. At least that's my opinion.
Okay, and just sort of because we're talking to play devil's advocate, let's say things come back and they're way out of our reach. We can't afford any of it. Then what?
Well, we just have to say we can't afford it and do whatever action we can do. That's just what I think.
I'm privileged to have enough experience to say with great confidence that that's not going to happen.
Okay.
With emphatic confidence, there's going to be a lot of low-hanging fruit and a lot of opportunities. We may need to look at things with sufficient care because the conventional process of looking at, for example, transportation costs is probably going to ignore things like grants, and we have abundant grant opportunities. So we should not be, when was the last time we bought an underground gas tank or diesel tank for our internal combustion fueled vehicles? Do we even have a fuel tank at the Public Works?
Not that I'm aware of.
So we never bought that. So we should not encumber an economic analysis of electric vehicles with that capital cost. You see what I'm saying? Because that's a separate issue. And otherwise we are biasing it.
So that goes back to it being a tailored discussion for our community.
There you go. Yep. Yep. I mean, there's grants available and we should be clear-eyed. So.
And I think with any proposal or plan, the recommendation should be tailored for the capabilities of the community. I mean, whatever the topic is, it's got to, the recommendation should be realistic, and I would expect it would be.
Okay. Further conversation before I make a motion?
I make a quick recommendation.
Sure.
The mayor mentioned this to me the other day. You were one of the first to get GAC. You sued a company who was polluting the Haw River. So going with the plan that the COG has put together for $20,000, which in the big scheme of things is not a lot of money. They've got a pretty good timeline to highlight and work out a lot of these questions that we seem to have. That's probably the best process. We've already got a workshop built into this proposal. If you all want a workshop, we can kill both birds with one stone there. And then just kind of work through what the next steps are. If there is a grant available that we apply for in May, we can seek options of this plan for that grant to then continue this process on in the coming fiscal years. And so that would be my recommendation.
I concur with that. I mean, I think it's worth, I appreciate the look at the cost and the kind of trimming of the plan. I think it's a worthwhile investment, and then obviously we can get a grant for it. That's great as well. So I think we should do both.
Okay. So unless there's further thoughts, concerns, I'll move that we fund and approve the proposal from CPRC for the climate action plan.
1 second.
You need different language?
Possibly, yes, sir.
Okay.
If you could authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with Central Pines COG for the facilitation and development of a climate action plan for the town of Pittsburgh. You can just say so moved.
Did the clerk hear that?
Can you repeat it?
Not a chance.
Microphone.
Authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with Central Pines Regional Council of Government for the facilitation and development of a climate action plan for the town of Pittsburgh.
So moved.
Second. Commissioner Foley, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
And so thank you, Mayor Shipp, for noting and calling out those aspects of the CAP proposal that would accommodate the kind of workshop that Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin is hungry for. I'm satisfied that what we're talking about is a planning process that will include a policymaking process. And I really hope that we do that before we charge CPRC with all of those details and I's dotting and T's crossing for an actionable plan. Thank you.
I think that's what's described, and part of the shift of the cost as well is doing that internally with Jenna in particular, of doing that work internally before we engage Central Pines first.
Yep.
So we will need a budget amendment for this because there was an opportunity for a grant on this item. Your budget amendment will be on the January agenda on consent. But this time of year, it's not like we were going to jump on the plan anyway, just with everybody's schedule. So it would have been January, February anyway. So you'll see that on your next agenda.
Okay. Okay, next we have a budget amendment for Sanford Road, and then I think also some discussion about options there. on Sanford Road.
Sure. Yes. Thank you. So we're all aware of what happened week of Thanksgiving. So this is the budget amendment to move some money, 15,000 from fund balance into departmental supplies, so we can seek out some solutions. We've had a meeting with DOT to discuss some options. We requested several options from them, about 5 or 6. I'm still waiting to hear back. We met with the county. Brian Thompson met with me on site last week to discuss some of the options, because some of those are going to have to be on county property, between the sidewalk and the county parking lot. It is, I don't think we're going to find a solution that will prevent people from jaywalking. I think we're going to just be able to do things to discourage it. But at the end of the day, it's going to be people's decision whether they decide to walk to the crosswalks or not. But we do have the lighting coming. We're working on trying to get that expedited. Likely some fencing, landscaping, and signage is likely the combination of things that we'll do. So this just gives staff a little bit of breathing room and money to go find some solutions.
Did you find out anything about the mid-block crosswalk? Was that a possibility or?
It is something that they are going to look into. Myself and Jen and the engineering department provided them some examples in the state of North Carolina where DOT has allowed mid-block crossings very close to traffic circles. So we're going to see what they say.
Would that be something like what we have on Hillsborough Street before you get to the market?
Similar. It would likely be 2 handicap ramps, ADA ramps, and then a mid-block crossing just going across. So we'd have to find the right spot too. Because some of those sidewalks on the Havoc mod side are pretty narrow. So that's going to be a key too. And then if you put in a mid-block crossing, are you going to have people crossing 20 feet up from the mid-block crossing?
Jaywalking.
Still jaywalking. Yep. So I don't know if there's a silver bullet for this one. I think it's going to be a combination of small things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I want to take the opportunity to praise Teresa and the downtown group for the beautiful, artful crosswalk near the pop-up park, between the pop-up park and City Tap. And I mean, I find it just so attractive, and my eye goes straight to it. So as soon as I encountered it, I slowed. And I think that's a very powerful thing. And I don't think I'm alone. I think that there's a lot of evidence from a lot of other cities that show that artful crosswalks are traffic calming devices. And so I think it'd be great if we did something a little bit out of the ordinary, perhaps using our Main Street facade improvement funds. I don't know if that would work, but a competitive commission for a really eye-catching crosswalk, I think would be really, really exciting and really cool.
I think we would have to call it artwork, get Dio's permission to do artwork and not call it a crosswalk.
Yeah. However you need to negotiate. That's
A good workaround.
yeah.
I think if we have to call it street art. But when I hear back from them, I'll mention that as well. It's a good idea.
Just two comments, I guess. Another place that I think jaywalking is frequent is between Havoc and the parking lot across the street, just on the street there. So we can look at that as well for these, similar solutions of bushes or whatever that is. And then also just to kind of thank the board, so that the action we already took of shifting the designation of 15501 is going to open up a lot more options here, because if it's not changed yet, but if it were to be still designated 15501, it really limits what DOT would allow us to do there more than they already limit what they're allowed to do there. So that's good to have that in place. Gives us a lot more freedom.
Thank you, Mayor.
The Havoc food truck crossing is going to be much more difficult to manage.
Mhm.
You've got 2 driveways across the street and people it's the natural flow. I'm not sure there.
Get rid of the food truck.
Wait.
There's an option.
Help me understand that better.
There's a driveway entrance into Havoc where their food trucks are designed to park.
Yep.
Then right across the street, you have the driveway entrance to the Havoc parking lot.
Aren't they offset about 15, 20 feet?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, when you're looking a straight line, you're right to it. I don't think maybe, but I see people do it all day. I mean,
I did it today.
they walk to the driveway and they walk.
I did it today.
I did it. That's the other day.
Yeah. Mea culpa. I've done it too.
It's kind of like Frogger.
So the lighting in that area could be better.
Yeah.
So we will discuss that, to see if there's a way to get another decorative light somewhere in there. I maybe have to come back and ask for more money. Removing the food truck could be an option there. With the new law that came down, I don't know if that's even something we can do anymore. Is that Supreme Court or appeals?
Court of Appeals.
Court of Appeals, yeah,
Move on.
about food trucks.
City of Jacksonville got sued by 3 people over their food truck.
trying to regulate the place and.
Maybe we could charge them.
Yes,
Trucks.
the court said you can do that.
I don't think the food truck is, I mean, there's a crosswalk close there.
Yeah.
We are lazy and like to cross where we cross.
Yeah.
That's difficult. But I appreciate this action and effort.
Yes.
We will do something. I just don't know how much difference it's gonna make, but we'll give it our best shot.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Be some elevated crosswalks.
Definitely.
You need that
10 million?
couple of zeros to this.
Yeah.
Underground cross.
Maybe 3 zeros.
Years ago, I understood they were $1 million.
Add 4 zeros to budget.
All right, I'll take a motion to approve the budget ordinance amending the fiscal year 2024-2025 operating budget and direct the town manager to discuss mid-block crossing on Sanford Road.
So moved.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Baldwin. Second, Commissioner Bonitz. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Move.
Commissioner Vose. Second. Commissioner Bonitz. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Which one?